King Thrushbeard, as collected from the German tale by Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, rewritten by Mary Cowley-Takaoka. There was once a king who had an arrogant and haughty daughter whose name was Star. She was indescribably beautiful, but was so whimsical and hard to please that she drove her father to despair. The king's daughter Star was beautiful beyond all measure, but at the same time so proud and arrogant that no suitor was good enough for her. She rejected one after the other, ridiculing them as well. There had been princes and kings who had sought her in marriage, but she had found defects in them all and would have none of them. Star's father began to despair, so he devised to give a great banquet to which he should invite all the princes and kings of the surrounding countries, for there cannot fail to be among so many someone who would please the princess. When the king gave the order necessary for the banquet and then called his daughter, she was led through the ranks and said, "Listen, my little Star, we have to see if we can find anyone to please you. Behold, my daughter, my hair is thus turning white." Star bowed her head, saying that she would take care to please him. However, Princess Star's intention was to make sport of each suitor that was to come into the palace. Once the king sponsored a great feast and invited them from far and near, all the men wanting to get married. They were all placed in a row according to their rank and standing. First came the kings, then the grand dukes, then the princes, the earls, the barons, and all the aristocracy. They all began to arrive at the court, and when it was time for the banquet, they seated themselves at the table. Gold and silver shone. At the four corners of the room were four fountains which continually sent forth wine, and it was the most exquisite feast. While the gentlemen were eating, Star was outside, and one of her maids who was nearby pointed out to her, "Now this one, now that one. See, your highness, what a handsome youth that is there." "Yes, but he has too large a nose." "And that one is too ridiculous." "Oh, no, too puffy." "Your highness, what about the other at the end of the table?" "Ah, much too stuffy." "Oh, no, too doltish." "Too massive." "Too scary." "Too hairy." "Not hairy enough." "Too full of himself." "Sprightly and small," or "thin and tall. This ball is no good at all." And thus she had objection to each one. She stopped a little before the last of all, for he was a fine man in face and form. She wanted to find some defect in him, but he had nothing remarkably wrong, except a ring of brown curling hair under his chin. She admired him a little and then carried it off with, "I won't have you, Whiskers." "Look," she cried, laughing, "he has a chin like a thrush's beak," and from that time onward he was called King Thrushbeard. "Ah ha ha, King Thrushbeard!" Star grew with delight and laughter. However, King Thrushbeard came to realize that he was indeed in love with the hard-to-please daughter of the king. "Alas, they're all not good enough for me," Star wearily told her father. Now the old king, seeing that his daughter did nothing but ridicule the suitors who were gathered there, became very angry, and he swore that she should have for her husband the very first beggar to come to his door. Meanwhile, King Thrushbeard went outside and devised a plan. "I guess this little urchin doesn't like my beard." Thus he shaved off his beard. A few days later, a minstrel came along and sang a little song beneath the window of the palace of Princess Star, trying to earn a small handout. When her father, the king, heard the minstrel, he exclaimed, Let the beggar come up." So the minstrel in his dirty, ragged clothes came in and sang before the king and his daughter. And when he was finished, he asked her for a small kiss. The king said, "I liked your song so much that I will give you my daughter for a wife." The king's daughter looked frightened, but the king said, "I have taken an oath to give you the very first beggar, and I will keep it." "Well, by all means, father, you swore that I should have for my husband the very first beggar to come to our door, and so here we are," she retorted, and so Star and the minstrel were promptly married. All she could do now was go away and live with her new husband. The beggar led her out by the hand, and she had to leave with him, walking on foot. They came to a large forest, and she asked, "Who owns this beautiful forest?" "It belongs to King Thrushbeard. If you had taken him, it would be yours." They came to a large castle, and she asked, "Who owns that beautiful castle?" "It belongs to King Thrushbeard. If you had taken him, it would be yours." Afterwards, they crossed a meadow, and she asked again, "Who owns this beautiful meadow?" "It belongs to King Thrushbeard. If you had taken him, it would be yours." "I do not like you always to be wishing for another husband," said the minstrel. "Am I not good enough for you?" "Perhaps." "And this lovely garden?" At last they came to a very little hut, and she said, "Oh goodness, what a small house! Who owns this miserable tiny hut?" To be continued.